Welcome, everyone, and thank you so much for investing your time with us today. My name is Ken Underhill, and I'm the moderator for this discussion. Today, we have an amazing panel on demystifying the evolving nature of cyber communities on the metaverse, where we'll be talking about the metaverse and its impact on both cybersecurity and diversity, equity, and inclusion. Our goal today is that regardless of the role that you're in right now, you're going to walk away with something, a new idea, a fresh perspective, a new strategy, something that you can apply to be more successful and safer in both your business and in life. So here's the format to give you an idea of what to expect. We'll take a few moments to introduce each of our panelists. I'll then kick off the conversation, asking some questions to help draw out some of the key things that we all should be thinking about when it comes to the metaverse. And then we're going to take a look ahead at the future of the metaverse. Sound good to everybody? All right, great. Let's go ahead and get started with our panel introductions. So as I mentioned, my name is Ken Underhill. I run the CyberLife television show, and I've helped thousands of women as well as other individuals get their start in cybersecurity careers. One of our panelists today is Aastha Sahni. Aastha is currently working as a lead cybersecurity instructor. She's also a very strong supporter of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And she's the founder of both CyberPreserve and the Breaking Barriers Women in Cybersecurity Foundation. Also joining us is Saman Fatima. Saman works as a data engineer. She's also a cybersecurity and DevSecOps enthusiast and expert, and she's also an active leader for numerous cyber communities. And finally, we have Ruchira Pokhriyal. Ruchira is a cloud security specialist. She also volunteers as an incident responder. She's an advocate for diversity, equity, and inclusion, and she's a very strong advocate for the LGBTQ plus community, as well as women in STEM careers. So before we get started in talking about the metaverse, I want to talk about where did we even come from? So back in the early 80s, for those of us that can actually remember that, we came out with what's called TCP/IP. For the non-techies out there, this is just a way for us to communicate better. So as an example, if I spoke English and you spoke Spanish, we could use a translator for both of us to understand what the other person is saying. And that's all that TCP/IP is allowing us to do for our computer networks. In the early 1990s, we came out with the World Wide Web, and that was being used by the general public and the advent of the internet. And in the mid 90s, everyone started using the internet in some capacity. It became commercialized. We started seeing different web browsers out there for those that remember Netscape and Internet Explorer in the early days. We also came out with things like instant messaging. So AOL Instant Messenger was a thing back then, and we all had fun hacking our friends' accounts to send random messages on their behalf. In the 2000s, we started seeing more of a personalized shopping experience. So things like Amazon came about, which all of us know these days. We all purchase on Amazon Prime and get things delivered to our door, but it wasn't always that way. And of course, social media, right? Things like YouTube, TikTok, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. I mean, the list is almost endless. And that's where we are. But where we're going is the metaverse. And Aastha, I wanted to ask you, what is this metaverse?
Thank you so much, Ken, for the lovely introduction. And hello, everyone. Welcome to GatherVerse Summit 2022. So as Ken started off with the history of internet, and today we are here to talk about metaverse, it's very important to know what we are going to do with this new term metaverse. So metaverse is actually an amalgamation of your physical world, virtual reality, and augmented reality. So what's happening in meta universe is we are merging the physical and the virtual world. And how this is going to happen is we are going to utilize a term known as digital twins. So what I read was about the whole theory of getting into meta universe and building a meta universe was we are essentially creating a copy of the physical world, which becomes a digital twin. And we can create multiple of these digital twins to become multiple virtual worlds. And these virtual worlds can be infinite. And us as human beings are going to interact with this metaverse in the form of avatars. Each one of us are going to have a specific avatar, which can go by all like how I look, how you look, or perhaps the avatar that you want to create for yourself, what you want to be. So largely, metaverse is the merging point of the physical and your virtual world where your reality is going to be developed into the virtual world. We are going to shopping together. We are going to watch movies together, even though we are miles apart across continents. We're going to attend a marriage that's going to be wow and huge because we have been attending Zoom weddings in this pandemic times and working remotely. So metaverse is going to be that one huge step, the next iteration of the internet world, where we are going to explore the unexplored parts. And at the same time, we are going to move to the next part where the physical world moves and meets with the digital world, where everything is going to be part of the real world is going to turn into virtual.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Aastha. So thanks for the great definition on the metaverse and what it is and giving some background on that. Ruchira, I wanted to ask you, how are people going to actually use the metaverse?
Awesome. So actually, how we are going to access the metaverse is not an easy ask, because this is an idea which is still evolving and it's not completely in existence yet. It's turning into something big as time goes by. So I would like to divide this into a two-part question. The first would be, how as a user will I access the metaverse right now versus how will I access metaverse in the future? So if users want to experience a very early iteration of the metaverse platform, there are plenty of those out there. Let's consider two of those. There's something called the Sandbox, which is a gaming metaverse, and it will enable any non-tech savvy user to create, use, sell, and monetize their own virtual NFTs. So this crypto metaverse will use its native token, and these tokens are called Sand, to underpin the entirety of in-game economy. And Sandbox is a little unique from other crypto metaverse projects, in the sense that its user-generated content ecosystem will make it more contributing to the metaverse. And it's so simple that your players really do not need to have any kind of coding skills. So it's basically available to the general public, which is not necessarily tech savvy. Another example is called Decentralized, and it's not a lot like other virtual reality video games because it's more immersive and real in the sense that you will have ownership of your assets there. So you can basically create anything possible in the physical world on this platform, be it digital skyscrapers, a rapid transport system, movie theaters, hotel, etc. So everything that you have available in the physical world will be found on Decentraland. If you have to talk about the basic steps on how to get started, it's pretty simple. The first thing that a user has to do is to step into the metaverse and create an avatar for themselves. So it's basically a digital representation of yourself. And as soon as you get in there, the panel will be loaded with multiple options to customize this digital identity of yours. So you can customize your hair, your eyes, even the color of your hair, clothing. You can choose to accessorize. And the next step is really simple. You pretty much just have to explore. So after you finalize an avatar, you will be dropped off in a location. You could even use a virtual map to teleport yourself from one location to other. And for example, there's something called Genesis Plaza in Decentraland, which is a starting point. And in here, you will see other avatars popping up near you. And when you move closer to these other avatars, or when they move closer to you, you will even hear their voice. So they're essentially trying to communicate to you. And not just this, but you can do a lot of fun things on Decentraland. So you can play a game called Wonder Minecrafting, which the basis of it is that meteors are striking the ground and you can mine them for minerals and money. And money here is called Wonder Coins. The best part is that you don't even have to spend your real money on it, because every digital identity or avatar will start off with 100 Wonder Coins. So it's very interesting and very simple to just kind of get an idea of how metaverse is. However, to access this, we do have some hardware requirements. So for starters, you'll need, you don't have to necessarily go out and buy something which is like really high tech and expensive. A smartphone is enough for now to get a idea of how metaverse is going to be like. The only catch is that you might not be getting that entire immersive realistic experience, and achieve that, you will need to invest in something like a VR headset. And the idea of choosing a VR headset is that you will get that realness and interactive immersive experience. So if you're not ready to spend that much amount of money, or you're not willing to go all the way in, instead of a VR headset, you can opt for a pair of AI smart glasses. And that's all about experiencing metaverse right now. And for the future, a full-fledged metaverse might be years, if not at least a decade from now. And there are still a lot of technical hurdles which we need to work on, starting with the fact that the world does not have an online infra yet that could sustain millions and even billions of people using the metaverse at once. And adding to that, there's a need for uninterrupted and very reliable internet connection, which is the key building block of starting a metaverse. You don't want it to be glitchy or loading virtual world scenarios. So there are also other associated issues with not just the internet issues, but laws around data privacy and security. So I think only time will tell how fine-tuned the metaverse will be in the future, but it's definitely a great experience to be explored in the future.
Excellent. Thank you, Ruchira. And when you mentioned uninterrupted connection, it made me think of dial-up internet for anyone that remembers that, and all the issues we had with keeping the connections, especially when grandma would always have to call at the wrong time. So I wanted to focus a little bit on diversity around the metaverse. And Saman, I wanted to actually go to you. How do we ensure diversity when we're talking about the metaverse, especially around the avatars that are available for people out there?
Thank you so much, Ken, for that question. And like we have talked about the metaverse right now, and we have discussed that it is a digital twin, and it is similar to what your physical world is offering. It's more or less the same. The virtual world would also offer you. So when you are part of that world, you would want to customize your appearance being looking like how you look, or you may take a customizable appearance for yourself as well. So before discussing that, I just wanted to pen down that experience when, if anybody has used Snapchat or Bitmojis, there also we use those avatars. And, we used to create our own real self as part of those Bitmojis. So that was a fun part to actually, send smileys and everything through your avatars. So similarly in Metaverse as well, we create our own self there. There are a lot of options that you are given to, like your skin color, your eye color, your complexion, your hair color, everything, like bits and pieces, minute details of your body parts could be actually customized for yourself, or anybody could use it. So we want these diverse features as part of our avatar, because a lot of cultures, a lot of well-beings are also there. It's not just specific to gender, male, female, or a specific nationality. We're covering every nationality, we're covering every gender, every culture. How they want themselves to be represented on that platform is something that the metaverse is offering. So you can play around with those customizations for yourself and roam around that world. And also, when we talk about the cultures and different nationalities, one thing that comes without saying is we are creating a digital twin, so that humane level, that humane factor is something that has to be maintained throughout that world, because humanity approach is something we are pushing out here. We want everybody to enjoy that environment and have a taste for themselves what that metaverse is actually offering them with that particular customizations, and how do you interact with everybody in that world.
Excellent. Thank you, Saman. Ruchira, I wanted to ask you, for those out there that are maybe disabled or neurodiverse individuals, how can we ensure that the metaverse is accessible to those people as well?
Actually, that's an issue that we are currently facing in our physical world as well. And the main problem lies with the fact that videos, in the physical world or in the online world, they are not typically retrofitted for accessibility purpose. And there's lack of captions, audio descriptions, even the language that is being used within a simple video. And the second part to it is that if we have to start everything in the metaverse will be interacted with through hand gesture, pinches, swipes, specific finger movement, control menus. These things are probably simpler for a regular user. However, not everyone can perform those movements. And that's the problem in this kind of a system. So if we have to transition to a metaverse, there has to be a lot of alternatives to motor movements. What are the alternatives for people who cannot simply swipe or cannot do typical hand gestures? The next thing is that virtual reality is inherently a visual medium. And so there's a lack of availability for people who are visually impaired. If you have to talk about visually impaired glasses, users have often reported that they are very uncomfortable. And so VR headsets are typically not going to be easy for visually impaired folks. And blind people often have issues with absorbing most of the type of media because, as I mentioned, there are lack of captions, there are lack of realness. According to a report, there's only 7% of books that are available in the format that would help visually impaired people, and only 2% of them are in Braille. Let's say for movies, blind-friendly audio descriptions are not so common even now. Platforms like Netflix, these are the ones that provide, some content and audio descriptive formats. However, the good news is that these challenges can be solved because all the characteristics of the visual experience can be modified to include or exclude certain type of stimuli. So let's say if there's a person who is particularly bothered by too much sound around them. If I have to take an example, if a person wants to experience the Times Square, but they are easily distracted or overwhelmed by the sounds of crowds, in a virtual platform that can easily be removed, giving the person some experience which is free of distractions. Another part that can be improved upon if we transition to metaverse, because it's a big platform, there has to be something which focuses on enhancing the skills and trainings of neurodivergent kids. So children always need a safe place to grow, learn, and enhance their skills. And it could be learning of any kind. It could be learning to navigate a grocery store, learning how to use a wheelchair, learning how to drive. And on the metaverse, many special educators will have the opportunity to use virtual reality to offer and create a very safe and controlled distraction-free environment for neurodivergent kids. And let's say, for example, students with disabilities and students with ADHD, that is particularly useful for them because the educators will be slowly able to introduce distractions in their environment and help the kids to control their stimuli. And I think that's the beauty of virtual reality. There's so much out there. Although there are some cons, there are pros that we can definitely change and make the metaverse a better place for neurodivergent folks and specially able folks as well.
Excellent. Thank you, Ruchira. So I wanted to focus on community for a little bit, and specifically around women, as well as how do we keep things equal for everyone. So Saman, any thoughts of how in the metaverse we can make sure that communities are allowing people to feel like they actually belong?
Before actually going on to the metaverse world and how communities actually prove to be very significant and play a very vital role, I just wanted to talk about communities in the physical world currently are, a very big help for a lot of people. It gives you the sense of belongingness, identification, and also helps you to collaborate with a lot of like-minded people. And, since the COVID times, we have connected virtually through a lot of communities, which helps us in different spheres. And demographically, we connect with a lot like-minded people. Like, people from the US can connect with people in Africa or in India or in Canada or any other country, actually. And this just makes them, understand that if they want to learn more about a particular topic, they just create a community and share those ideas with them and take that forward. Similarly, since we create the same space of the physical world in the metaverse as well, communities come in very handy. Like, for example, if I just want to start a community of women in cybersecurity, I just want to have a lot of women who are into cyber, be it of any level, junior, senior, C-suite, any level. And that is a place where we learn about a lot of things of that particular topic, and a lot of people could learn there about different areas or how they can push themselves to be part of that area. Similarly, we could have other sections like there could be a group on exercises or physical wellness. And, we could see a lot of people actually exercising together, learning different exercises or doing yoga, different asanas there. So that is something very personal to everybody who comes and joins any community. They think I would be the best here, or maybe I could learn from here a lot. Like, for example, I don't have a schedule for my exercises. I would want to be part of such a community where people are promoting all these things. So that is a boost for me and for anybody else who joins those sort of communities. So communities play a very, very vital role, be it here in the physical world or be it on the virtual world. And it'll give them a next level space of expressing themselves and learning as well.
Excellent. Thank you, Saman. So Aastha, it seems like the metaverse will open up some opportunities for not only women, but all sorts of individuals. You mind just speaking on what kinds of opportunities could the metaverse open up?
Definitely, Ken. And I think that's a very important question and a very important point of awareness, which everybody needs to know, because metaverse is not just about an evolving technology. It's going to be part of the world that we are going to largely live on. And when it comes to the terms of utilizing technology, we have been utilizing technology till now. So metaverse is not about people who are technical, first of all. And at the same time, it's not going to be about them. It's about bringing technology where everybody can participate and utilize. So when coming to the terms of opportunities, it's not only about promoting women in STEM that we are always doing, because we need more women in technology and science. That's a very great thing. But at the same time, people have different interests, and how they can become part of metaverse, including women, is you can participate in a drama. You can be a singer, you can be an arts person, you're maybe making paintings, and that's where metaverse can be a great place for you. Because in the future, if we are transcending towards the metaverse and bringing metaverse as a real and virtual world, kind of a bound, like we are trying to bridge those boundaries of the real and virtual world via metaverse. So through this, people can start to elevate and bring their talents to metaverse. They can start to do things together if they were not able to do, let's say, in the real world. So let's say there is a drama competition here in New York and you're living in Europe or Asia. You can still participate in the metaverse. You can still participate with people, play different characters role. So it largely open plethora of opportunities for individuals, not just women. So when this opportunity or this awareness is created, women largely, they are going to see metaverse as a great platform to shape and build their career in the future to come.
Thank you, Aastha. So one of the challenges we have with social media these days and in society in general is there's a lot of unrealistic body and beauty standards put on women specifically, and also anyone that identifies with any gender. Ruchira, can you speak on that? Do you think we're going to have those same problems in the metaverse?
Absolutely. And I want to address this by, first of all, saying that, rightly said by Aastha and Saman, a metaverse is not a scary technical term which will only be understood by people who are tech savvy. It's a huge platform which is trying to encompass different kind of talents and showcase them. However, it could be a scary place for people who identify as women. And if I have to focus on just the tech area of what metaverse will look like, right now in the physical world, according to a 2020 report, women have made up of only 20% to 23% of tech jobs at huge tech giants. And although there are plenty of very capable women out there, yet the world of immersive tech is still very male dominated. And part of the reason is that its development is very much driven by the gaming industry. which is again very male centric. And even with the small representation of women in the gaming industry, a third of female gamers have reported regularly being sent inappropriate content or gender biased abuse on online gaming platforms, which is unfortunately the harsh truth. And there have been issues such as unrealistic female body standards, even for video game characters, to racially biased avatars. People have not been able to adapt to an avatar which represents them in real life. So they are forced to choose avatars that are totally different than their actual representations. Most of the people opt to be living things or even animals because they do not find their proper skin tone, the way their natural hair is, which is a problem that we really need to look at before we even move to metaverse. And not to mention the hardware. When it comes to hardware front, women are twice as likely to experience cyber sickness than men when they are using the basic VR headsets. And that's because majority of the hardware is created and sized with male users in mind. So it's difficult to come to this conclusion, but women who are even trying to pursue tech have to be really prepared to enter an industry which is literally not even made for them. However, I do think that we are slowly seeing some change, and recently it's been really great to learn about Zepito, which is another growing metaverse platform, and which now has over 2 million users worldwide, and reportedly 70% of these platform users are females, which is great. So I think in order to solve these issues and make metaverse more diverse and inclusive of all genders, and especially focusing on safety of women on an online platform, we need to have that diversity and inclusion with the creators who are making this metaverse possible. And if you look at the people currently building the virtual space, it's mostly male developers. And although this is slowly changing, only 24% of developers are women. And honestly, gender is only part of that story. I think in order to create a very and truly diverse platform, we need diverse group of people working together into creating and developing those platforms. And the goal is not just to have people from a diverse background. It is helpful because these diverse individuals will ensure that they avoid any kind of bias in terms of any stereotypes when we are creating that platform. And which is why we promote diversity and inclusion, right? A platform does not have to just be diverse because it's a policy or because it has to be. Diversity will actually bring a lot of benefits even when creating a platform for other users.
I fully agree with that. Thank you, Ruchira. I wanted to focus on the safety and privacy because you brought up some of the issues that women are facing right now, even. How do we authenticate people in the metaverse, Ruchira? Like what are some ways we can authenticate them, looking now and also, even to the future? And also for all the creepy people out there that we always want to block on social media, with the metaverse, how can we actually block those people as well?
That's a very, very, very important question. And for that, I have to say that we all are aware of NFTs, and NFTs are already being used to uniquely identify and provide authenticity for digital goods. And these are safe because they are registered on the blockchain, right? And it does not require a great deal of imagination to just come up with a concept that you can utilize this and extend this to create a unique digital identity, right? So why can't we do the same thing to create a unique digital identity? And this is this more or less means that NFTs, if used as a form of digital identity, would be unique, and that cannot be replaced by something else. Let's take Bitcoin, for example. It's fungible. So if you trade one Bitcoin for another, you'll have the exact same thing. There's no difference. You just have another Bitcoin. But one of the benefits of using NFT is that it's a one of a kind trading card. So if you trade your NFT for something different, you'll have a completely different identity. And if you have to talk about authenticating to different virtual worlds exclusively, let's say Saman, Aastha, and I have created a virtual world of our own. and we do not want anybody else to have access to that. We could probably think about using CryptoPunks, which is a non-fungible token collection. However, there are only 10,000 or so of them available in the world, and good part is no two of them are exactly alike. So you have that proof of ownership stored on the Ethereum blockchain, and that can officially be called yours. And that's how you will authenticate to different virtual worlds. Again, this is an idea which is theoretical and it still needs to be implemented. When we are talking about authentication, I also want to mention that we are slowly slowly moving away from using passwords. And passwords are now essentially being replaced by biometrics. So in the metaverse, I see our biometric fingerprints or face ID being our passwords, which is much safer. And there's also inclusion of technologies like FIDO, passwordless authentication. So with FIDO2 cryptographic login credentials, these credentials are unique across the website and they will never leave the user's device. They're never stored on any kind of server. So this would essentially strengthen the security posture and will eliminate the risk of phishing, any kind of replay attacks or password thefts. Last part of your question, how do you block people on the metaverse and how do you monitor bullying and any kind of toxic behavior? So in 2020, a safety video for Horizon World came out. And it was a wonderful idea. I really enjoyed watching that video. And it states that Meta, formerly known as Facebook, will constantly record what is happening in the metaverse. But that information will be stored locally on a user's Oculus headset, that is the VR headset. And if a user reports a toxic behavior or some kind of harassment, several minutes of that footage will be sent to the safety specialist for them to assess, and then they can take necessary actions. And additionally, if the user is uncomfortable or feels unsafe in the metaverse at any given point, they can enter a personal safety zone and step away from that virtual surrounding. So this is essentially drawing a personal bubble to protect your space and not letting anybody in. Also, a user can block and report people via this feature. And not just this, they can also request an invisible safety specialist to monitor any kind of suspicious or dicey situation remotely. Lastly, if anybody does not follow the code of conduct, they will be banned from Horizon Worlds. And I believe this idea, if extended, will make the metaverse a very safe space for all genders.
Excellent. Thank you, Ruchira. So we also have concerns over privacy and the risk around our data and everything. And there are some regulations out there and laws, GDPR being one of those. But Aastha, I wanted to ask you, do you think that laws, regulations, et cetera, are going to actually keep up with the metaverse as things get rolled out? Or do you think there's going to be that lag that we have typically these days?
I think, Ken, one of the important things would be that we need to consider definitely is because different countries have their own standards defined specifically, like as you mentioned, GDPR. We have a specific GDPR for UK as well. And then another thing which is there is CCPA, and CCPA is actually California Consumer Protection Act. So when we have different compliances and standards into picture, in fact, HIPAA as well. For payments, we have PCI, and then we have ISO standards. So when all of these standards, they exist in the real world, how are they going to be implemented in the virtual world? That's another question, because not only standards are going to come from the point of view of how we are storing information and how the control users have on their information, these standards and compliances are also going to be applied on transactions. How we are going to make virtual transactions in the virtual world. Because definitely if we are creating replicas or duplicates of the real world and creating virtual world in metaverse, so definitely there would be presence of some kind of virtual economy. So how does that virtual economy is going to look like? Because everything would be global. Metaverse would be accessible to everyone across the world. So another consideration which comes to the mind is, are we going to utilize the existing standards? If yes, how we are going to channelize them? And if no, if the possibility is more complex, because it's not only about iterating towards the next level, it's also about what kind of data you are collecting. I also read one of the posts by Washington Post, and There was this founder, Kavya Perlman, and she's the XR Safety Initiative founder. And she clearly mentioned that now the data tracking and data capturing will not only about the information, it also be about your bodily movements, your facial movements, everything would be tracked. So how this is going to be stored and in what form, what kind of encryption mechanisms are going to be coming to the picture. If it's blockchain, then there are different challenges with blockchain implementation as well. Another consideration would be your government agencies and other authorities. They will also need to be consulted on building these platforms if they are applying to be global. Because if they are state specific and country specific, then country specific governments would be involved. But when it's largely global, we need a regular or a uniform implementation of these compliances into picture. Because at the end of the day, if an information is exposed, or basically a very highly sensitive information is exposed, then that incidental exposure can have very high repercussions. And we really need to consider all what ifs when we are talking about information storage, when we are talking about how much control user is going to have on the data. If companies are implementing metaverse, then what policies they are going to ensure that needs to be implemented at the employee's end. So all of these definitely needs to be considered at a very high priority level, because when information starts to flow, it's just going to grow. And when this metaverse comes into existence in the years to come, so these consultations are very important. And I also know and also read that companies like Meta, they are collaborating with universities as well. They are collaborating with different research groups so that they can work on what type of data would be generated and how that data can be used at different levels. And when I say different levels, it's not only from the point of view of the legal levels or what's right or what's wrong. It can be malicious as well, because cyber attacks, they're not going to leave us. So definitely we have to take care of all those considerations when it comes to privacy and compliance.
Excellent. Thank you, Aastha. Saman, I wanted to go back to you. What kinds of security threats do you think we're going to see with the metaverse?
That's something, a very, very important question here. And I just wanted to start it like, when we are into our physical world, we take care of a lot of important things in our life, like it could be any cash or gold or any other documents. So that's something we protect in our physical world. We safeguard those things. But when we move to the digital world, like if I just talk about the current times, we have a lot of things to protect it. And we have a lot of bank accounts, we have our social security numbers, we have a lot of other details of the work we're doing in our organization. And it's always advisable that we do not share all these private information with anybody or, any stranger, or technically it should be anybody, your password sharings or anything should not come around. Same goes with the metaverse as well. And this goes without saying that as technology is advancing, like we're moving now to metaverse, it's like next level thing that we are incorporating for us in the future. But as technology advances, so are the cyber criminals as well. They are also uplifting their knowledge, their education in that ways that they could also attack and take out all those information. So as Aastha and Ruchira mentioned, there are two types of users dwelling into the metaverse. One is people like us who just wants to be part of different communities, learn about the platform just for our recreational purposes, connect or network with people. But yet there are other people as well who are starting their own ventures, who are, wanting to sell us something. And we at the end user, we would want to take that. So there are a lot of security issues involved there, and we have to be very careful with that. It's just not a give and take thing, but it's a bi-directional thing, where if somebody is selling us something, we have to be very, very careful. Like, what are we buying? From whom are we buying? Is it authentic or not? Like it happens in the physical world as well. Like we've heard a lot of things happening, like, a box containing, not the actual good, but something else. So you don't know what you get and what you receive. So just to start up with the headset thing, we wear those headsets, we use those sensors or controllers to move around and traverse. But we don't know how our eye movements, hand movements are technically being stored somewhere. That data is getting stored somewhere, and somebody else can impersonate us and, become an imposter and, go somewhere else as us and take up a lot of details there. But it's not just us, it's somebody else. And similarly, when you have a lot of transactions there, you don't know that actually if I'm paying to the vendor, or is there somebody else in the middle. Somebody else in the middle is actually taking and receiving everything, and we just don't get the end product. So you have to be very, very careful with your data. How are you using it? How are you not using it, but how are you putting it out in the public? If it's just your name, or maybe your gender, or maybe your date of birth, how are you putting it across onto the internet? Anybody can track you down with some very basic details as well. And that is where you have to safeguard yourself, your data, and everything. So with users, you lose a lot of things, and thinking that it doesn't comes back to you, no, you're very wrong. It can come back to any of us actually. And with people who are starting their own ventures, they have to be very careful with all these things, because that can lead to a lot of loss in terms of financial loss, as well as a lot of, loyalty loss as well into the industry. So security has to be taken very, very carefully. And, at the very early stages, at least, it should be thought of when you enter the world. And with every step where people can attack you or take advantage of the world or the situations.
Excellent. Thank you, Saman. So as Saman was mentioning about businesses coming into the metaverse as well, Ruchira, I wanted to ask you, what if a business kind of abuses that, right? So what if let's say a business targets a child to sell them cigarettes? What can we do, Ruchira?
So safety for kids on metaverse, I think is not very different from how guardians and parents take care of safety of kids on the internet. So the answer is pretty much the same. Family members, parents, guardians, they still need to be mindful of the fact that children have access to immense amount of data when they are on any kind of social media platform. And these days it's very easy to put in a fake birthday and get access to some social media platforms, but those age ratings are there for a reason. So I think if we have to be mindful of what our kids are getting access to, we need to, at the same time, we want them to explore, go out there and thrive. We need to have a system in place which lets them know that, hey, this is something which is out of bound right now. Maybe when you turn 15, you get access to that kind of content, but till you're 15, this is a no-no. Parents and family members also need to know this. Any platform which is giving you options to explore, and for example, metaverse, they are giving you a place to explore and talk to other individuals in a very real sense. They're just providing us a platform. Security is still a shared model. If we are using that platform, we are equally responsible for securing our data. What we put out there is going to be there forever. The platform is just going to provide us certain settings using which we can secure the data, but we need to figure those settings out and decide how much we want to expose to the online world versus how much we want to not share. Another factor which parents and guardians can consider is monitoring the activities and usage of the children's privacy. But this is something which should be used in a very appropriate manner. This is not a free pass to, invade your child's privacy or spy on them. You are not to snoop on your kids, but to minimize the necessary exposure to data to ensure their safety. Another nice way of ensuring safety is to educate yourself and keep up with the changing technology, which many parents these days are opposed to. And what that causes is kids who are constantly playing on Xbox or PS5, they are just able to put on their headset and escape from the real world completely. And as this increases, this is leading to a bigger divide between the worlds of parents and children. And thus, in case something happens online, maybe cyberbullying, kids always find themselves not very comfortable opening up to their parents. So one option would be to have some kind of family time on the metaverse, where for a set amount of time you play certain kind of games and icebreakers with your family members. Another way would be to consider parenting locks. As we do with Netflix, YouTube, we have to put certain kind of restrictions of what we want our kids to be able to see. And not just, other people pretending to be kids and trying to manipulate them. We do not just have to worry about predators out there who prey on young kids, but also the fact that kids can be really mean to each other, and that will have a lasting impact on mental health of any child. So are there any measures to ensure that cyberbullying does not happen? Are there any content filter which will automatically ban certain kind of comments from being posted and let the other kids know that, hey, this is inappropriate language and you should not be making use of it? So this leaves us with a lot of open-ended questions. And since the metaverse will feel very real in the coming time, I think it would be really necessary to talk about and consider parental locks and age-based limits. So I'm hoping that this would definitely be a future, and certain new tools would come up and be in place so that all of this can be achieved to ensure safety of children on metaverse.
Absolutely. So Aastha, I wanted to ask you, as we think about like education and awareness around the metaverse, what do you think we need as far as, the platforms or the companies that are actually, helping build out the metaverse, as well as, other businesses that are leveraging this, for meetings or whatever? Like what kind of documentation or training do you think is needed, Aastha?
Definitely. That's a great question. And I think since a lot being talked about metaverse across the internet, it really requires proper documentation at different levels. So let's say we talk about different platforms which are providing metaverse, maybe for workrooms, maybe for creating an entertainment rooms or whatever it is. So whatever platforms are being created, definitely they need proper, I would say, cyber education centers for that, basically telling people or making people aware about what's happening on these platforms. Before they register, no user should be able to skip this training, because irrespective of the parts that how much knowledge you have about it, it's important to know how a platform is rolling, what are the rules and regulations, what are the code of conducts, what are the do's and don'ts. Like we talked about, like as Ruchira was talking about, there can be illegal activities. So we would not be promoting illegal activities, but we definitely know this is a great possibility that can happen. So how to put a restriction on that? We need proper training for this, because before even a user signs up for a platform, they need to go through these proper channel trainings, which will have videos, short videos, as well as documentations. And those short videos would be providing demos on how to register yourself, become part of the platform, what are the activities that you can do and what are the activities that you cannot do, and what are the actions on those activities, so that anyone who, let's say, is not aware would be aware now. And if now when they have become part of the platform, they would be very mindful of what activities, conversations, data exchange, and how much they can communicate, respect, humanity first. All these factors will come into place when we talk about documenting trainings. And at corporate level, since we have been living in the pandemic world for 2.5 years now, and we have been remote, and there is no denial that we can be remote for a more longer period of time, and it can be forever. So they're going to be in-person environments, hybrid environments, and virtual environments at home. So when you are remote or in a hybrid mode, definitely you're not always meeting people. So if corporates are including or they're introducing metaverse so that their colleagues, they feel connected in the environment, they feel engaged, they feel they're part of all the conversations and meetings, because let's say you're working from home and half of your team is working from office, they're having fun meetings, you want to be included at the same time. So if definitely that's the case, and that would be the case, this is the reason companies are going to incorporate metaverse, so that we have more connectedness and moreover global connectedness as well, because different companies and MNCs, they are spread across the globe. So how different employees can connect with each other at a very close level, because through metaverse we are bringing people more close through internet. So when this happens, again, it's important to have corporate trainings before enrolling up for these environments and throughout these environments, because like internet has evolved throughout the years, metaverse is also going to evolve. So one-time training is not going to make everything work for us. As things change, as new changes comes and they are being implemented, so employees would be better able to learn about it. And of course, like we have other IT and other compliance related trainings, this will also become an important part. So let's say when we have code of conduct trainings at workplace, this should include metaverse when the company has started to implement metaverse. So all the trainings that we have till now at a remote level or at an in-person level, they have to be incorporated keeping in mind metaverse, and separate training of metaverse should also be there, where employees know what are the do's and don'ts, what type of information they can be sharing over metaverse and what they cannot, because there would be a fine boundary between what information can be misused at as well. And it's not going to be just the general internet, it can be the corporate network as well. We have to take care. So we also have to take care of terms like zero trust that we are implementing in security right now. We have to take care of zero trust in metaverse as well, while you're working or while you are meeting people. So those kinds of trainings at a citizen level or at a general level should be on various platforms which are supporting metaverse, and at the same time at the corporate level when they are implementing metaverse for their employees at a global level.
Excellent. Thank you, Aastha. So Ruchira, you mentioned some of the security challenges around kids and keeping them safer. How can we educate kids about the metaverse and some of the dangers that they may be facing?
I think education is important, not just for kids, but anybody who is going to have access to metaverse. And rightly said by Aastha, it's very important to not skip all of the code of conducts, the documentation and the trainings. I think there has to be a provision of making those security trainings mandatory, because if you don't, everybody likes to skip through all the jargon and just like get in there and explore. So, which is quite fun, but I think it should be very important, especially if you're talking about kids, to make a security training fun. That way, even if they don't fully understand it, at least they'll know what to do in a situation of crisis. And it's not a perfect world, be it the physical world or the online world. We cannot be sure that there won't be a zero-day attack, some zero-day exploit someday, and our systems will not be breached into. Yes, there's a possibility. We cannot escape the entire thing. We cannot escape security attacks, but what we can do is try to minimize the impact. That is still in our hands. So when it comes to metaverse, I think it all boils down to our digital identity. And there are questions like, if there is a person who is going to expand their business on the metaverse, who is tracking their sales? What are they selling? Are they authorized to sell that? What's the age limit for people they are selling this to? Are those people physically active? Would there be any health issues if they consume that product? So these are all the things which will just give rise to bigger questions. But to ensure safety, I think everybody accessing the online world, not just metaverse in the future, needs to take security trainings very seriously.
Thank you, Ruchira. So one of the things that people surface when we talk about blending our technology or digital world and the physical world is about the wellness, both our mental and physical health. Saman, do you mind just sharing your thoughts on some of those challenges that people may face as part of moving to this new metaverse?
Sure. So when we talk about all the technical stuff and what all we can do on that platform, then comes the factor of wellness. It's always taken up as a secondary pointer, but we should primarily focus on the wellness part. And I want to focus on both the ones, physical wellness as well as mental wellness. Once we talk about physical wellness, because we know that we're wearing a headset, we have certain sensors in our hands, it gets a little tedious for our eyes. And yes, that set is quite heavy, where we have read as many of the feedbacks from people who have given some time onto the metaverse world to, view it, how does it looks. So, giving a lot of time into that world, right now can strain your body, can strain your eyes. And like, we say to us as well, we should always have a, phone free time, screen free time. So similarly, we just want to implement the same here for our own body. We don't want to get, tiring after using a new word. So that should not be the factor there. Secondly, when we speak about mental wellness, that is something, which everyone should understand. And the three of us have mentioned it a number of times that humane levels should be maintained. You cannot actually cross that boundary of, disrespecting other people, or, crossing that boundary and, affecting somebody's mental health. And example, I am there into the metaverse for, recreational time. I just want to spend some time there, explore, enjoy, have a good time. But, due to few of the experiences that I had there, I feel a little nervous, scared to be there on. And I think a lot about it. And that is, after all, affecting my mental health. So these two things are very, very important for an individual to take care of. And also, when you are onto such a virtual world, obviously, you cannot see exactly the face or the body of the person. You cannot, but still, it is a human being. That person has feelings and emotions, and you should not cross that boundary. So mental wellness is to be taken care of. And when we talk about wellness, we also have a lot of research groups from healthcare as well, where they're actually, researching about, the digital avatars, which we discussed about. They're actually learning more things and teaching more things on the basis of the social skills and the interactions the digital avatars do into the world. So those things also comes handy when how do we react to the interactions? How are we actually putting ourselves down there? And since we talked about diversity and diverse groups being part of that world, this actually comes down a great thing for research groups to actually learn more things about different cultures and how people are putting themselves there for understanding the social levels and interactions. So yes, I would again want to reiterate that, mental and physical wellness is something very important when you're out there into the virtual world. So take care of that.
Excellent. Thank you, Saman. So now I want to look to the future of the metaverse. So there's many things that we all need to consider in order to help each other build out this metaverse responsibly. So Aastha, I wanted to start with you. What are some of those considerations you think that all of us need to keep in mind as we build out this metaverse world?
Thank you, Ken. So one of the key takeaways from this session and all of the details, all of the research that I have also been doing on metaverse is one of the important pointers that we need to consider that priority is user management or avatar management. And along with that, trust and accountability. Because one of the very important things about the existence of metaverse is who is going to use metaverse at the end of the day, us as digital identities, us as digital natives. So when we are part of the metaverse, it's important to understand and consider, first of all, as part of requirement gathering, that how many users or how we can create from a single person. So for example, if I am signing up at a platform, and in that platform, if I am into multiple worlds, so how many avatars I can create and how these avatars are going to be managed. Because metaverse can also be used as a platform where people can use it for the purpose of how they want to be. So for example, how they dream themselves to be in the real world, they can create a similar avatar for them in the metaverse. So how many avatars can be created? How we can identify all of these avatars to one single digital identity, because we need to keep track of all this. Then if we are supporting anonymity on metaverse platforms, then how this anonymity can be misused by attackers? That's another question that needs to be considered. So if we are providing anonymity, how we can utilize that? If we are promoting, or if we are allowing multiple creation of avatars, and let's say these multiple creation of avatars can confuse cyber attackers because they don't know who to target them, because there are different avatars, how they would know that a particular avatar is you. So it's good for confusing cyber attackers, but at the same times, what are the other benefits and disadvantages of having multiple avatars? Then how we are how we are handling the avatars after life. So once somebody's identity is there and they are no more present in the real world, how we are handling that? The third most important thing is promoting humanity first across metaverse, throughout metaverse, till the time we start it or we move to the next level. We don't know what's the next level of metaverse, but we have to promote humanity first, because we are going to enter a platform with excitement, with happiness, that we are going to make the world more closer. So at the same time, all of us needs to practice, irrespective of what documentations, how these platforms are created. It's important for us to practice humanity first and be accountable for our actions. And all these platforms should have proper code of conduct policies which can clearly indicate that the avatars are liable for their actions. The third most important thing would be how avatars data is going to be stored. So storage management, existence of multiple avatars, anonymity, and then the very important thing is trust, and that will always come when we will be showing humanity first approach. We'll be showing respect towards each other. We'll be building healthy communities at metaverse, and at the same time implementing strict policies across the globe, so that people are accountable and people are liable for all their actions, and they adhere to all the policies and code of conduct that I would like to highlight.
Excellent. Thank you, Aastha. So Ruchira, what are some of those considerations that you think we need to keep in mind to help build out this metaverse responsibly?
So if I have to conclude with some key takeaway, and by the way, it's been amazing talking about metaverse at length with all of you. But as an end user, if metaverse is the future for us, I would expect metaverse to support and respect the diverse background and diversity of the digital creators, respectful representation of underrepresented groups, especially my LGBTQ plus and neurodivergent siblings. I would want the metaverse to incorporate safety and ethic practices. There should be strict laws around privacy and data use. And we should definitely consider the history of diversity in IT while building such a huge and wonderful platform. And this is our second chance at creating a perfect world. So let's use this wisely.
Excellent. Thank you, Ruchira. So Saman, same question. What are some of those considerations that you think we need to keep in mind to help build this out responsibly?
We've actually talked about metaverse a lot, and when it comes, to us into existence, when we are part of that, there are a lot of plus points, and what all things we propose is something also good on the table. So we discussed about education, and since a lot of us are not much known onto the platform, what it offers and what are the things, and we also talked about certain kinds of documentations and how can we have people know about it, like how does it works, either videos or audios. So that sort of education is right now a must here, so that everybody, not just the non-tech people, the tech people, or even the children, everybody, even I would include old people as well, because they have now become very tech savvy. They use a lot of platforms. So they should also be well versed with how and till where you have to share and, stop at a moment and take a step back. So education is something very important. And, these things, when it comes down to the world, to, even school levels, organization levels, or even to, for recreational purposes, it's something really amazing for people to enjoy if they are, continents apart. And next, since we talked about, diversity, we talked about male dominance in different areas of technology. This is a very great time for diversity groups as well as women to actually put their front here into this world, learn more about it, and, be, leaders here, or, make themselves more empowered into the metaverse and learn from here, put people also on that learning phase and gather a lot from the metaverse. So these are my 2 considerations for the metaverse.
Excellent. Thank you, Saman. So again, thanks, Aastha. Thanks, Ruchira. Thanks, Saman, for joining us in this session. And thank you to the audience out there watching for attending. We hope you learned a lot, and we look forward to seeing everyone in the metaverse.
Thank you, Ken, and thank you everyone for joining us today.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks for joining.
Thank you. I hope this was an insightful and useful session, and hope to connect with all of you in the future again sometime, hopefully in the